Hi, I'm so excited to have you guys here with me. It's so beautiful. And I just really, it's ideal, of course, to gather in person with people to celebrate the solstice. But that's more challenging as things get busier and people are spread out. And so this is just an opportunity to not only get the self nurturing, the self care, and, just like that activation piece, but also to do it as a group. I think it's super powerful and it brings about so much more transformation while making gather together, especially. I love having all sexes, but especially as women, I think that it's something that we used to do. I'm just muting my phone. I think it's something that we used to do a lot more, as together as women, and that's where we really had power in the community, was together. And the biggest, I'm not going to go on too much of a tangent about this, but the biggest thing that broke down the natural power that women have was the isolation and separation of women. So what you see this a lot with new mamas, you see this a lot with a lot of us, just get busy in our lives and we start isolating. But the more that we can gather, the more that we collectively have that feminine power. And this is also true. Men need community as well. We know that. But there's definitely something about being a female and gathering with other females. So I pulled a couple cards I wanted to go over really quickly before I dive in. I think it's interesting. I pulled from my astrological deck, which of course I got the Capricorn and Pluto, which I thought was interesting, and of course Cancer. So basically, what that's telling me is that obviously, I mean, I already wanted to talk a lot about Cancer and Capricorn, the axis of that, because that polarity is so interesting and so up as we move into the summertime. But also for the last, since November, I think, was when the north and south node of the moon. So we have nodes of the moon, and they're basically just calculation points, but they are in different constellations. So right now they are in, the north node is in Cancer, and the north node is our collective dharma. It's where we're all as a society being asked to go. And as I start talking about Cancer more, the Cancer season, but also just like the energetics of Cancer, you start to understand, we're all being driven, we're all being pushed collectively. Our dharma, we're being pushed into this self-nurturing, but also nurturing others, more mothering, taking care of mothers, also taking care of the most vulnerable populations. And so all of the things that we're seeing happening with children separated from their parents is so disturbing, especially if you are a parent, but it really highlights the issues that we're having to deal with right now around these things. And then, of course, our south node is in Capricorn, and the south node is our collective past. And it's interesting because it has a lot to do with the United States in general. And so these eclipses that we're having through the summer, and then also we'll have one at Christmas in Capricorn. And the last eclipse that we'll have is a powerful Capricorn lunar eclipse in 2020. So those are our eclipses for this time period, and they are in Cancer Capricorn. When we have an eclipse, it means that the sun and the moon, or just the sun, or just the moon, is within 10 degrees of the north or south node. Okay, so you can have people who are born near an eclipse. Obviously, that happens a lot. And then also when something important is happening, you want to understand where the north and the south nodes are, because they're telling us where we should be looking for guidance. So when we're going to move into looking at charts, it's helpful to understand where these eclipses are happening in your birth chart. And you're going to have time periods in your life where you're having what we call the nodal return. And that's a time period of either A, clearing out your past if it's on your south node, or B, opening and expanding to your dharma, to where you're supposed to be moving forward. So they're really interesting times. I just went through mine the last 18-month cycle, which was the Leo Aquarius eclipses. And it's you can't really explain the kind of transformation. Everybody talks about the Saturn return, but there's all kinds of returns. So we want to look at those. And when we talk about the nodes, why they're important is because we're also talking about the eclipses. And for eons, since humans have been here, we have been calculating and understanding and wanting to know more about the eclipses because they were huge. We could feel the energy. If you think about all the technology that we have now, it kind of separates us from nature. And so when we didn't have those things to divide us, separate us from nature, then we really did have the opportunity to really know, like, wow, things are really different during these time periods. And then because of that, wanting to understand and learn them more. So the other card that I pulled that I want to definitely talk about is Pluto. And this is really interesting because it was Capricorn and Pluto is in Capricorn for a while. We also have Saturn in Capricorn, but I'm definitely supposed to talk about Pluto, and that is something that I will get to. But right now, I want to get started in with the solstice. The other cards, well, let me just tell you the other cards I pulled. This card is ordinary. It's about really paying attention to our day-to-day lives, really finding those blissful moments in the routine, in the ordinary, and the things that we quote unquote have to do, but actually we can find joy in them. The patience card, which if you see the moon cycles are right on there, and this is a pregnant woman, very feminine. So definitely about the patience that we see with, that looking at like a pregnancy and knowing that things take time. We have to really, and this is this whole time period that we're in leading up to 2020 is about knowing that things are changing, knowing that things are shifting, and having the patience to see them through, and the patience to know like things aren't going to be instantaneous. And then seeing beyond illusion, which also has to do with Pluto and Neptune. So I definitely am going to talk about some of that. Okay. But let's get started with just like what the solstice is and all of those kind of details. I didn't introduce myself, which would have been nice to do. My name is Abigail Borella with Sparkle and Shine Guidance, and I'm an astrologer and an intuitive healer. And let's just jump right in. So the summer solstice has been something, all of the equinoxes and the solstices have been celebrated all over the world for a very long time. And so much so that there are structures such as the pyramids and Stonehenge that have been built to be activated by the sun hitting a certain point. So it's pretty magical. There's still places on this planet where you can go to at the solstices, at the equinoxes to see this happening. And it's pretty spectacular to think about how much we knew then that we have kind of lost touch with now. So the solstices are an opportunity, and the equinoxes, to get back in touch with that kind of very primal aspect of ourselves that that knows certain things, and to just tap into that wisdom and tap into that knowledge that you have within you. Something I think that it's really interesting is summer solstice in the Northern Hemisphere is the longest day of the year, right? But in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the shortest day of the year. And so it's really interesting to think about this, because I always think that the Cancer Capricorn polarity is so interesting, because the summer solstice comes June 21st when we're feeling very external, very just the light shining so bright. And if you think about Cancer, they're kind of homebodies. They definitely like to go out and have fun, and they definitely can take their shell with them where they go. However, there is a very internal aspect to a Cancer. And so it's really interesting. It's at the longest day of the year, but then if you look at the Southern Hemisphere, it's the shortest day of the year. So I think there's a really interesting dynamic with Cancer Capricorn, and then having Capricorn start on the shortest day of the year, and it's all about work and working hard. And I'm like, but it's the shortest day of the year, So in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the opposite. So I guess there is some kind of balance to all of that with both of those signs, Cancer and Capricorn, where they both need that internal, external balance. And we often think of Cancer Capricorn as the mother, the father. Even though Capricorn is an earth sign, it is ruled by a very masculine planet, by Saturn, which is duty, responsibility, harsh, kind of just like got to get it done, like nose to the grindstone. Yeah. Is that how you say that term? Anyway, let's get back on track. So that is just an interesting thing to look at. But basically what the science is with summer solstice is the earth is always tilted 23.4 degrees. And when it's in its rotation, because not only are we're moving through space as we rotate, right? And so the summer solstice is when we're pointing toward the sun. And this is why in the southern hemisphere, they're pointing away from the sun because the earth is round, right? So at the summer solstice, we tend to just have more extroversion, more socialization happening, which can really cause us to not get a lot of work done, right? Like there's a lot of busy things happening, but there's also a lot of inspiration coming in. And so, with us having the longer days at this time period, it's the opportunity to really, most people sleep a little bit less, have more sunshine, more opportunities to be outside and to be inspired. A lot of artists are Cancerian. A lot of intuitives have Cancer placement. So it's something that you really want to have that opportunity to, even if you're out in nature, even if you're out socializing, to take that opportunity to also kind of pull back from socializing and take care of yourself and tune into your intuition. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the sun because what's interesting is that, as the sun moves into Cancer, we're moving closer to having the new moon, and also the fact that Cancer is ruled by the moon. It's an interesting polarity because, and I was just talking about this, but the sun is basically the star that we revolve around. And so to have every summer solstice happening at the start of Cancer season, there's this interesting dynamic between Leo, our hearts, and our intuition, our gut with Cancer. If you know any Cancers, they sometimes have digestion issues. Their digestion can be a little bit slower, and they're very sensitive to their emotions when they eat. They have to have like a very clean, energetic state of mind when they're eating, or else they can have digestive upset. So there's this interesting connection between our gut and our heart, and there's all the science being done between the connection between our heart and our gut. And so when the sun moves into this time period of Cancer, it's really important for us to pay attention to what's coming up for us around our emotions, but also around our intuition and our heart space. And so that's something that we're going to do when we do our visualization and kind of the activating this time of year. But what we want to remember about the sun is when we're facing towards it, the summer solstice, and our days are longer, it has more power over our identity and over our lives. And so thinking about the god Apollo is something that can be really helpful, because if you don't know anything about him, definitely look him up. But basically, he's about healing, and he's about creating this consciousness that allows us to heal. So when the sun has more power, more influence in our lives, it's connecting us to spirit, and it's connecting us to this inner healing modality that we can all access during this time. So this is an opportunity at the longest day of the year to really tap into what is coming up to be healed. How can you connect into spirit through the wound? We often say, like, what is that saying? The crack is where the light comes in, And so just remembering that we're all on this journey. We all have our wounds. And instead of focusing so much on our wounds and focusing so much on where we need to heal, we can kind of shift that at this time to be like, we all have our wounds, we all have our story, we all have things that have hurt us deeply. And if we can really be in a place of, this is just who we are, it's detaching a little bit away from our story of our wounds, and also just realizing that, like, we have this power from having those experiences because we have the compassion for others, and we have the ability to help others by understanding deeply what that felt like. And so this is where it's really important to tune into our own, understanding of what heals us and what brings us joy and our own natural vitality. Everybody charges themselves up differently. And so it's important to know what gives you your charge so that you have more to give, so that you have more to offer. And this is where we also can get into boundary setting. And when you're setting those boundaries for others, for yourself and for others, you actually have more to share with others. So it's a really interesting, again, polarity or opposite to think about things. So, and then to talk about the moon a little bit, also start thinking about, when I'm talking about these things, where your natal sun and where your natal moon are, what constellation they were in, what sun sign you have, what moon sign you have, because it'll help you to understand what's also getting activated at this time. So, the start of Cancer season is ruled by the moon. And something I always think about is the connection between the moon and the ocean. It's the moon's gravitational pull. The moon is so close to the earth and has such a strong gravitational pull. And, oftentimes just like moon gazing or connecting with the moon, it does naturally tap us into our ancestors. It does naturally tap us into our feminine lineage. And so just thinking about that connection between the moon and the ocean, our emotions and the way that we have intuition and the way that we nurture ourselves. So it's interesting too that Cancer is a cardinal water sign. It's the start, it's the initiator of the water signs. And it's also a time period for us to look at what emotions want to be looked at so that we can create something new. And this is really, again, a spot for me to talk about Pluto for a minute, because Pluto rules Scorpio, which Scorpio is a water sign as well. It's a fixed water sign. And the reason why Pluto is getting activated right now is that it's coming into a conjunction with Saturn in Capricorn. So when we're looking at these eclipses, we also have to recognize that Pluto's getting activated and Saturn is getting activated along with these other aspects. And so that's why it's like with the astrology, it's so hard to keep it simple because there's always things shifting and changing. And Pluto is a longer transit, but it's a very important transit because Pluto rules the deepest waters of our mind and where things are getting pulled up and unearthed. And the reason it's different than Neptune is a more spiritual connection to spirit, whereas Pluto is the connection to the earth, to the underworld. And so when we have these Pluto transits, they tend to be super uncomfortable, more so than Neptune. Neptune kind of makes us spacey. You might be feeling that as well because Neptune is lit up with a square with Jupiter. But Pluto is more of this very uncomfortable energy. It's the things that we can't see within ourselves, but also within others. And it is I have to take a sip of water. A societal thing. So it's our whole society. And it can have these darker aspects to it. So there is the light, with all the planets, there's the light and the shadow. And one of the tricky things about Pluto is the shadow is, I don't want to get too much into this idea, but basically, way back in the day, in the time of Atlantis, we were all beings working towards being reunited with Source. We were all beings working towards that and doing our work and looking at where the North Node was leading us and really following that North Star. And then when Atlantis kind of fell apart, that's when, many believe, I kind of believe this as well, that then darker forces came onto the planet to kind of keep the light forces working towards back to Source. We all have a soul, but back to Source. So when we come down to planet Earth, we separate from Source, we become, our soul is into a body, and we're actively working towards being reunited with that. Then we look at Pluto and we can understand that not every powerful force is actually working towards that. So I don't want to get too much into this. I don't even know. I'm kind of getting down a rabbit hole. The main thing that you need to know is that our personal power, wherever your Pluto placement is, it shows you where your personal power is. And the thing that keeps you from that personal power is fear, shadow, and these darker forces that can be infiltrated through programming, through, all the things that can be done through, to keep you from your personal power. So looking at your natal placement of your natal Pluto can help you to understand where that repressed power is. And then looking at the transiting Pluto is going to show you where it's getting activated and lit up. The transiting Pluto is activating and lighting up and unearthing that house placement. So let's just say, for example, you have your natal Pluto in the second house, okay? But then the transiting Pluto is over your seventh house. Well, your natal Pluto is always there, and it's always, through different ways it's getting lit up. It's trying to show you and bring you to consciousness and kind of pull those gems up from the earth, so to speak, to understand your own power. However, we also have the transiting. So if the transiting Pluto is in your seventh house, it's unearthing your house of relationships, your house of partnership. So that's how the difference between your natal placement, your birth placement, versus the transiting planet. We all know if you go out into the night sky, you might be able to see some planets. And where you see them in the sky is what we would pull out on a piece of paper and say is the transiting planet. If you went back in time to the day you were born, that would be the transit for the day, but it marks the time period that you were born. So that's that. And moving forward, the moon. So the moon is the planet that revolves. It's not really a planet. It's the luminary that revolves around us. So we revolve around the sun, and the moon revolves around us. What that's telling us is the moon is very nurturing to us. It's following us. And if you think about attachment, if you think about, our first relationship with our nurturers, it really helps us to understand the moon. And in this way that we all deserve that, someone firmly and securely attaching to us, making eye contact, checking in with us, and letting us know that we're loved for who we are. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to change anything. We're just unconditionally loved. However, since we're all humans, we all have a different experience with that first nurturing relationship. And oftentimes, you can have a parent who is nurturing, but they have, let's just say, for example, they have 4 children. Maybe 2 of those children, depending on what their moon placement is, are getting the kind of nurturing that they need from that parent. And 2 of the other children are not getting what they need from that parent. And it's really interesting to see that it's not really about a parent doing something right or wrong. It's about how each individual is so different depending on their birth chart, what kind of nurturing they need. And so some of us got it, some of us didn't get it. And you can have a really messed up childhood, but if your moon connection to your nurturers matches up, then it can go a long way in terms of your attachment and to your ability to have that security. So it's a really interesting thing to think about, and it takes a little bit of pressure off of parents, even though we should all be great and we should all love our kids. Just you can never be the right thing for everyone, right? But the moon really tells us about what we seek in emotional security. This is why it comes out in relationships and intimate partnerships, but also in friendships. The moon, your natal moon, is going to tell you more about what you want and seek in those intimate spaces, in those nurturing relationships, when you're home, what you're like, when you were a kid, what you were like. So our moon says a lot about what our needs are emotionally, and also where we need to set boundaries. If you look at your moon placement, it'll show you, if you're feeling like people are walking all over you, or you're feeling like your needs aren't being met in terms of your boundaries, look at your moon placement. Look at what is really important to you in terms of what areas in your life, so the house placement, but also what sign it's in. And that'll show you how you need boundaries to be set for yourself. Okay, so thinking about this eclipse coming up and talking a little bit about the transits that are going to be happening during this Cancer season, we are going to have 2 eclipses, and I have those written down. And we'll talk about this when we look at charts as well, but I was going back and forth in my different note taking. Oh, here we go. So we're going to have 2 eclipses and a Mercury retrograde during this time period. And the connection between the moon, because that's the ruling planet right now, even though I'm talking about the sun and getting activated at the solstice, we are also dealing with that interesting dynamic of the sun and the moon coming together for an eclipse in Cancer. So the moon is the winner. Even though we're at this external time period, the moon wins the competition of what we need to really be looking at right now. So the first total solar eclipse will be July 2nd at 10 degrees. So again, when you're looking at charts, you want to look to where your 10 degrees of Cancer is. And this is why I really talk about degrees, because the way that I look at charts is your time of birth sets your rising sign, and your rising sign sets the whole chart. So I'll just use mine as an example. I was born at 23 degrees of Leo as my rising sign. So my whole house system, in the house system that I do, is set to start that your first house starts at the rising sign and goes around in a circle. And so when I'm looking at the eclipse, I want to look to where 10 degrees of Cancer is in my chart, because it doesn't necessarily mean your Cancer house can go over 2 houses. It can be like, for me, it's my 11th and 12th house. So good thing to just understand. And when we're looking at the eclipse and we're looking at, it's a solar eclipse, that means it's a new moon eclipse. And you want to set intention in that house, wherever it is for you. And it's a really powerful, fresh start opportunity. When we have the lunar eclipse, it's a clearing out. Like that full moon that we just had, that was a clearing out. I don't know if you guys felt that. It's like serious clearing out, preparing us for the even bigger clearing out that we're going to do with this partial full moon eclipse, which will be on July 16th at 24 degrees of Capricorn. So the new moons offer an opportunity to set new intention, bring new fresh energy in. The full moons offer an opportunity to clear out. So when we're talking about a full moon eclipse, it's going to be even more powerful. The eclipses, I always say, are like, this analogy really bothers some people, so I hope it doesn't bother you. But it's basically like, they happen every 6 months, and it's like the flush on the toilet. Like if you flush and it doesn't all go down, the eclipses are like the biggest flush of all the energy. So like it's just clearing out all the debris that like the moon couldn't do on its own. So then we have these eclipses, and they're just super powerful, and they do the clearing for us. So they're very charged. They're very heightened. And because of that, we want to have awareness of where it's happening in your chart, so that you can nurture yourself, so that you can be aware, so that, I just noticed that people that know where this stuff is happening, where they have that awareness, they're less likely to have emotional breakdowns. They're less likely to, be taking pharmaceuticals or be checking out, because they have this extra awareness that like these time periods might be lit up for them. So it's just good information to have. So we really want to look July 2nd and July 16th. And of course, in between that time period is also going to be huge, because it's building. The energy builds from the new moon to the full moon. And we also have, during that time period, a Mercury retrograde starting in 4 degrees of Leo. on July 7th, and it's going to transverse back into Cancer. So it starts in Leo. We actually just went into the shadows today, but that's okay. We're not in Mercury retrograde yet. July 7th is when Mercury retrograde starts. So ideally, you get things signed, you get things started now, and then moving forward, you kind of take a little break from starting fresh new things or signing things or doing things that are important from July 7th. Really, I say it's just that first part. But for this one, I think, you know, I would say all the way to the full moon. So from July 7th to July 18th, I would try to avoid signing contracts, starting fresh new things, and wait until the new moon on July 31st. Which is my birthday, and I was born at the new moon. So it's a new moon on July 31st with Mercury going direct in 23 degrees of Cancer. So basically, when we're looking at a Mercury retrograde, we're looking at it going back through a sign. So it's going from 4 degrees of Leo back through 23 degrees of Cancer. And I'll show you this on a chart so that it makes more sense. So those are important things that are happening during this time period. So when we know these things are happening, we can have a greater awareness of how it's going to affect us personally, and then also how to help others. When we look at the word emotion, it actually comes from the root word of it. You know, the root of it comes from moving out, like moving things out. And I always talk about, you know, it has the word motion in emotion, has the word motion in it, movement, flow. That's why the energetic healing work that I do is so huge during these time periods, because this opportunity to flesh things out, to clear things out is so much more heightened. And then if we can also activate it with this energy work that we're going to do some tonight, it really has the opportunity to just create that flow that you need in order to really move forward. So things that I want you to remember for the season. Before I get into my list, I also want you to remember anything that creates flow in your day, flow in your week, flow in even your hour is going to be good. Going for walks, going for a swim, being near water, you know, whatever it is, yoga, moving your body, just like eating, going to the bathroom, like all the things flow. Just keep things flowing. We don't want stagnation during Cancer season. We don't want stagnation during Cancer season. So we want to create flow and movement. Themes are also boundaries, trusting your intuition, self-care, mothering yourselves, and also nurturing others, but with those boundaries intact. Our emotions are a navigational system, so just learning to listen so that they can move out. It's funny because a lot of us want to rush to, myself included, moving out before we actually sit with and feel. And so we can't move things out until we feel them. I have been stalling on making a free PDF for you guys, but basically it's about the 4 stages of healing, of self-healing. So it's basically, 1, you have to have awareness that it's even there. 2, you have to have the somatic experience of knowing where it's living in your body and to feel it, to let it get lit up so that you can feel it and see it. So you have the awareness and you feel it and you see it. And then it's about creating that flow, moving it out. Wait, there's one other thing. So I guess, damn. Well, that's why it hasn't been created yet. I have it written down, but that's why I haven't created it yet, because I guess I haven't integrated it enough. But basically, it's about awareness, feeling it. Where is it in your body? Knowing where it is. No, that's why I'm messing up. Thanks, guys, for letting me talk this out. I'm a verbal processor. So it's about awareness, what's happening. It's about somatic, where is it happening? Then it's about feeling it, letting it be lit up and really feeling it, and then release, moving it out. So we can't do the moving it out until we actually feel it. So at this point, I'm going to have you guys get really comfortable in a seated position wherever you are. And we'll just do a little meditation activation for this time period. I love this picture because it's so Cancerian to me. It's the homes, and often our land of origin is really activated at the Cancer time period. So wherever you come from, but also where your ancestors come from. And then the water obviously is really important. And then the blue sky, there are some clouds, but blue sky, and the just it feels so like cozy community in that little town there. Okay, so get comfortable. I'm just going to close my eyes. You can do whatever feels right to you, and just really feel your sits bones, really feel your hips. Breathe into your low belly. Take a moment to do a body scan. Notice your body from your head all the way down to your toes. Notice if you're feeling anything in particular in your body. Below your feet, imagine beautiful, strong roots that are reaching and stretching into the earth, pulling up fresh, new, grounded energy during this time. We really need to focus on that earth energy, letting it come up through the soles of the feet, letting it come up to the low belly. And then imagine a beautiful, strong waterfall coming off of your hips. It's as wide as your hips. It's flowing out. And you can just let anything go down your waterfall that's not serving you at this time. Anything that I said that confused you or you didn't understand, just let it go down your waterfall, away from your body. Let it go to the earth for now. Up above your head, imagine a beautiful halo or crown, and just invite in a little bit more light. Let it dance down through all the cells in your body. Let it come all the way down to your low belly, mixing in with that earth energy, letting that light and that earth mix in your low belly, just like a big cauldron, letting it just collect and create this rejuvenating energy of your chi building. This is your energy. It's not for anyone else. It just belongs to you. It's your unique soul, your unique print of energy, and let it move up through your heart and your chest. Let it move through your throat, in your ears, in your face. Let it move through the back of your head, the top of your head, the neck, the shoulders, the arms. Let it move through your high back. Let it move through your low back, through all of your organs, your kidneys, your adrenals, your womb space, your hips, your legs, your feet, and back up through the front of your body. Just take a few minutes to let yourself feel this flow moving. Feel this energy moving through your body. Notice if you feel any tingles. Notice if you feel any places where it's kind of not moving. Notice if you feel any places where it's really moving. And just breathe here for a moment. And as you feel this energy moving and flowing, take notice of your root chakra, right at your perineum, right at your hips. Notice your connection to the earth. And we're just going to gently notice if this energy is flowing in the way that it needs to. Notice if it needs any more release, and let that energy move through. Let it move down your waterfall. Notice if you have any tightness here, just breathe into your roots. Our root is also our connection to Pluto, and just remembering that there's power in connecting to our root, connecting to the earth. And that there's really nothing to fear in our connection to the earth, because Our connection to the earth is sacred, and our connection to the earth is just for us. We have a unique relationship to the planet. Our soul comes down to really feel that connection. And if you notice any tightness here, just breathe into it. Notice any sensations throughout the body as you expand your root, as you expand your connection to the earth right now. Letting that chakra move and flow and spin. The chakras are like little mini water flows, like if you think of a water mill. And so we want this to be pulling energy up from the earth to feed your whole body, to feed your whole spirit, your whole mind. So just let that energy flow up. And then coming up to your second chakra at this time, your belly, where you're right below your navel, your belly button, your womb space. This is your creative center. This is your connection to your space for you. We build on that energy of the earth, and this is where we can create. So notice your womb space, notice your low belly, and just gently imagine this chakra spinning and moving and flowing and creating flow through your life. Notice if it flows easily or if there's any stagnation. If there's any stagnation, just look at it. Just ask what's there. See if you can light it up so that you can move it out. Notice if the emotion is something that's asking to be seen at this time, or if it's just ready to move out. If it's asking to be seen at this time, allow yourself to notice this, and maybe you want to work with it later at a different time, but allow yourself to notice this and just honor and respect that there's something there that wants to be seen and acknowledged. And then ask for flow, even if you're not clearing this completely at this time or any of the chakras, just ask for more flow to come through here. Ask for more chi to move through this area, to enliven and enlighten this area of your life. And thank it. Thank your womb space. Thank your second chakra. Thank your reproductive organs. And then we're moving up to our third chakra, which also connects into Pluto in a big way because it's our personal power center. And it's also where other people can draw power from us if we're not careful. And it's right above our belly button. It actually connects with our diaphragm. And so something that you can notice is if you're not breathing deep enough, if you're not taking up that space for your breath, you might not be tapping into your full power, right? And how our connection to our power has so much to do with our voice, because if we're not breathing, we also don't have full access to our voice and our speaking. And that's how we convey what we have to share here. So honor your third chakra, spin that chakra. Notice if you want more light to come through. Notice if you want more earth to come up. What is this chakra asking of you at this time? What do you need here? Breathe into this area. Let anything that's ready to move out go down your waterfall. And notice if there's a picture or there's a situation that needs to be cleared or looked at, and you can do that later. But just notice it and say, I see you. I see you. I'll work with you later. And then coming up to your heart, and this is where I really want to spend some time. So notice your heart. Notice the back of your heart, the front of your heart, the sides of your heart, under your armpits. This very delicate place where we have this cage. We have this rib cage built to protect our heart. And at the time that we, if we do become a mother, our rib cage actually expands to make space for our babies. And There's something that's opening in our heart from going through the process of becoming a mother, from breastfeeding. But even if you haven't had those experiences, the heart is the place where we can nurture ourselves and nurture others, and where we let people into our heart. We let the most intimate people into our heart space. And so notice in your heart if there's any things that haven't been said, having to do with others, having to do with your love for yourself, that needs to be said, that needs to have words put to it. It doesn't mean that you have to speak it to the person, but it needs to be said somewhere. It needs to be written somewhere. It needs to be spoken. Just notice what's living in your heart right now. In this moment, notice if there's pain, if there's love, if there's grief, if there's, self-sabotage, if there's self-worth issues. Can you love on all of these parts of yourself? All of these places where you've let people in and they've hurt you, or you've closed your heart down out of fear of being hurt. Can you love on all those parts of yourself? And just imagine around your whole ribcage from under, it's kind of like a cast from under your arms all the way around. We're going to create this beautiful emerald green, crystal clear, kind of like band of energy coming around. And we're going to ask Archangel Raphael to really guide us towards clearing out any stuck or stagnant energy in the heart that wants to move at this time. Allowing your breath to come down into the diaphragm and fill in the lungs, fill in that space from your heart to your diaphragm. And asking Archangel Raphael to clear out anything that's ready to move out, and to build in some fortitude, build in some self-love and gratitude for all that you've been through, all that's coming up for you. Just really allow that love to penetrate in through this band of green light. Let it move into all the cells. And through your heart, the heart has so many things happening for it. It's literally working from the moment, I guess it's like 4 weeks that it starts beating, but basically it's there from the moment we breathe, take that first breath, it starts pumping and it doesn't stop, right? And it is so strong, it's so resilient, and it's gone through so much. And so just take a moment to honor your heart. Honor what it's been through. Honor what it has to say to you at this time. Ask it what it needs. What does it need today? What does it need tomorrow? And just give gratitude and appreciation to your heart. And then moving up through your throat and really looking at what your throat needs, what your throat is saying to you. So many of us healers, so many of us awakened women and men have issues with the throat. Something that I see a lot, and it's actually coming up for me tonight, just because I know that so many of us are dealing with it, and so many of us have healing that wants to happen in our throat chakra. And it's through the throat that we've been disempowered, that we've been separated from our soul. Because if we can't speak things, if they can't come to the conscious mind and be spoken, they can't be seen as easily. And so we want to honor our throat right now. So we're just going to envision our throat and their throat chakra just moving and flowing, and envisioning this beautiful blue color. And if you look at like the blue of the ocean and the blue of the sky, it's just so crystal clear. And really honoring and respecting that that's how our throat wants to be all the time. Our throat wants to be pure, and it wants to be speaking our truth. It wants to be singing and moving that energy. And so right now at this time, just imagine that throat chakra moving and flowing. And I really do think that we need to do that band of blue that's like a cast coming around, and call in Archangel Saint Michael, Archangel Saint Michael is the protector and really is the one that protects us from those darker forces that I was talking about earlier in class. And it is through the throat chakra that they've caused a lot of damage to the ones here to teach, the ones here to share our medicine so that we can elevate the collective vibration. And so we ask Archangel Michael to come in with this sword of truth and to clear away anything that is not truth from our throat chakra, anything that is false beliefs, false notions around past lifetimes where we've been persecuted through the throat, where we've been persecuted for speaking our truth, and just clearing out any of those debris, clearing out any of those even microaggressions of time periods in this lifetime where we've said things and people have reacted in a way that doesn't serve us. People have reacted in a way that has scared us. Letting this blue, beautiful light move through, just create healing and regeneration and empowerment through our throat, through our ears, through the back of our heads, through our brainstem, just letting that blue light move all the way in, and just all that juicy energy is rejuvenating and strengthening us. Notice how your throat feels right now. Give thanks to your throat, give thanks to your voice. Your voice has so much power in it. Just, it's so unique. It's so unique. It's your voice. It's for you. And it's for you to share. Moving up to the third eye and just creating movement through our third eye, creating movement and flow throughout this area where our intuition, where our activation of our dream time, of other dimensions, of other realities, of our insight and our vision for ourselves comes in. And when you feel this area, really notice if you can feel flow here. Breathe into this space. And just imagine this beautiful white light coming in and cleansing and clearing this whole area from the back of your head, throughout your head, throughout your eyes, throughout your inner eye, your pineal glands. And just really envision this beautiful white light clearing out anything that's not serving you at this time and activating your vision for yourself. We're all going to take 20 seconds to envision what you'd like to see come to fruition this summer. So take a moment and think about it first. What you'd like to see come to fruition this summer. It could be for yourself, it could be for others, it could be for anything. What would you like to see come to fruition? And then in your mind's eye, the most important thing is seeing it. Seeing what it feels like, seeing what you're doing in that picture, seeing what it feels like in your body to be in that space of the thing happening. And notice what details you can draw into your mind's eye. So what colors come to mind? What people are there? What situations are happening? What's your body language? What's your, what are your chakras doing? What is going on with your outfit? What is going on with your hair? Like, these details are important. I notice that I'm very hydrated, like these little details, they really give you an inclination to like guiding you towards that thing. So go ahead, we're going to do 20 seconds of just envisioning, seeing the movement, seeing the flow of being in this space. If it seems far away, bring it closer. Bring it really close. It's okay to let yourself be creative with this. It's okay to see certain colors and then have them change. Excuse me. Okay, I want you to take this picture that you've drawn in your mind's eye, and I want you to bring it into this chakra. So just like wherever you see it happening, just bring it in closer, bring it into like the side of your head, or bring it into your shoulder, just bring it into your energetic space. It's like a bubble of a visual. So some people are very visual, some people aren't. If you can't see this, this is okay, but you're basically just like letting that picture. And we all know like things can change and you might even think you want this thing. And then once you get it, you don't want it. But for now, let yourself bring this image in somewhere close to your body. Like let it just live next to you. This beautiful picture of how you want the summer to go and the things that need to get you there. And finally, we're moving up to the crown chakra, that chakra that's like right above your head and like we wear it like a crown. So imagine this beautiful crown on your head and it's light. It's not heavy. It's light and it actually lifts you up. It's like you're grounded into the earth and you feel those roots and you bring that energy up. And you're also connected to source through this light. And it's very much your unique connection to source. And the more that you're being kind of a freak and being your unique self, the more you're connecting with source. It's really interesting. So just imagine this beautiful purple light connecting you in with source, lifting through the crown of the head, and just letting that light pour down and fill in through your whole body. And noticing that space on your head and just like really what kind of posture you would be having if you were wearing this crown. And that flow of light coming down, notice how that feels to bring the light down. Notice if it's easy. For some of us, it's very easy. For some of us, it's tricky. And if it's easier for you, you might need to not bring as much down. You might need to be choosy. And if you bring up more earth energy, you might need to be choosy with that and not bring as much up, because people that just tend to tap in really easily to the earth energy can feel more heavy if they let in too much. And people that are connected to the higher the realms might get lightheaded or nauseated or just feel really not in their body if they're bringing down too much light. So we want that connection to both, and we want those to mix in the body. And that's why it's so important to be in your body and to take care of your body, because we want that connection to both to be really intact. Okay, so thank you so much for doing that visualization with me. I hope it was as helpful to you as it was for me.